His name was John Blauvelt. He was 28 years old and serving as an active-duty member of the U.S. Army. When his wife disappeared, John Blauvelt was the last confirmed person to see her alive. At first, there was nothing about the case that suggested a violent crime. There was no broken door, no sign of a struggle, and no emergency call made that night. The house looked normal, quiet, undisturbed. Because of that, the case was officially logged as a missing person investigation. Investigators began with routine steps. They documented the last time she was seen, the last known location, and the people closest to her. As expected, John Blauvelt was interviewed early in the process. He told investigators there had been no argument, no unusual behavior, no reason to believe his wife was in danger. He described the day as normal and claimed nothing seemed wrong. To the officers present, he appeared calm and cooperative. There were no visible signs of panic or distress. At that stage, there was no reason to hold him or treat him as a suspect. Several days later, the situation changed completely. A body was discovered inside an abandoned residence. The remains were identified as John Blauvelt's wife. It was immediately clear this was not an accident. The injuries showed signs of a violent assault. The cause of death confirmed homicide. But what stood out most to investigators wasn't just the violence, it was the scene itself. There were markings on the walls, objects placed around the body. The positioning didn't appear random. It looked intentional. Because of this, investigators expanded their focus. The scene appeared staged in a way that suggested something more than a personal crime. Attention shifted away from the husband and toward outside possibilities. Some investigators considered cult involvement. Others questioned whether occult symbolism played a role. The idea of unknown third parties began to take shape. At that time, John Blauvelt was not classified as a primary suspect. A background review didn't raise immediate alarms. He had steady military service, a consistent work history, no documented violent behavior, nothing that suggested instability or a criminal past. The crime scene also didn't look impulsive. The location had been selected, the body had been positioned, the environment had been altered. It appeared planned. While investigators followed these theories, time passed. During that period, John Blauvelt left the area. He relocated to another state. He didn't attempt to hide his identity or disappear completely. He continued working and living openly. Records later showed that he entered a new relationship. The person he became involved with was 17 years old. There was no interruption in his employment and no immediate reports of concerning behavior. To people around him, life appeared to move on. Years passed before the case changed direction. Eventually, the investigation was reassigned. New detectives took over and reviewed the case from the beginning, without relying on the original assumptions. They looked closely at the crime scene again. The markings and symbols were re-examined. This time, investigators noticed something that had been missed before. The markings didn't match known ritual patterns. They weren't consistent. They didn't follow any recognizable belief system. They didn't mean anything. They were meant to look meaningful. The conclusion was simple but important. The scene wasn't symbolic. It was staged to distract. With that realization, investigators rebuilt the timeline. John Blauvelt's movements didn't line up with his original statement. Witness accounts revealed inconsistencies. Travel records showed gaps that couldn't be explained. Then digital evidence was reviewed. Search history revealed inquiries related to body disposal and mechanical processes. These searches were made after his wife disappeared, not before. That detail mattered. Investigators stopped asking whether an outside group was involved. They stopped looking for complex explanations. They asked one basic question: who benefited from her death? The answer pointed in one direction. John Blauvelt was reclassified as the primary suspect. An arrest warrant was issued. When authorities attempted to notify him, he fled. He was eventually located and taken into custody. There was no resistance during the arrest. At trial, prosecutors laid out the case clearly.
They presented the reconstructed timeline, the digital evidence, witness testimony, and the analysis of the crime scene staging. The markings, once believed to be symbolic, were shown to be deliberate misdirection. There was no cult, no ritual, no conspiracy. The crime was controlled, planned, intentional. John Blauvelt was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. The case revealed a familiar pattern. Early assumptions delayed accountability, staging redirected attention, time exposed the inconsistencies. John Blauvelt didn't attempt to escape responsibility through force or chaos. He tried to do it through order, through structure, through appearing normal. In the end, the investigation reached a clear conclusion. The person closest to the victim was responsible for her death.